The format for this particular panel is we really want to try and make for some provocative discussion, because what we find at a lot of these events is that you get talking heads that mouth a lot of cliches that don't necessarily relate to the practical world. And I'm very pleased to say that today we've got a very interesting coterie of people who really do come from the practical side of implementing models that actually do lead to the generation of revenue and cool user experiences. So to kick off today, what I'd like to do is to introduce our panel to you, ladies and gentlemen. A very interesting and eclectic mix of people who are particularly experienced in this area of evolving content and media directly into the mobile world. So first of all, kicking off on your right and on my left, I'd like to introduce you to Mark Young. Mark is the Head of Business Development and Strategy for Disney Mobile. And Mark comes from a very, very esteemed background in the mobile business, played a very, very central role in the growth and establishment of Moviso, which really was the first company to introduce not only ringtones, but certainly more diverse platforms of mobile entertainment. And as part of the executive leadership team at Disney Mobile, Mark is in a very interesting role, because with Disney being such an important company in the media space, notwithstanding the fact that Steve Jobs is now the single largest stockholder in the company. But the point is that Mark is responsible for identifying new products, new services and partnership opportunities, as well as all of the transactions that cover content, applications, retail distribution and handsets. And so Mark, welcome here to the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, give Mark a nice round of applause. Make him feel comfortable. Mark did a degree in entrepreneurship at USC here in LA. And certainly I know from some personal experience of working with Mark, Mark always was somebody who looked for the unusual that could lead into some kind of revenue consistency and strength. So Mark, it'd be interesting to hear about what you're doing at Disney Mobile, and we're going to perhaps ask some provocative questions about Disney's whole approach to mobile, particularly in view of the fact that one of the Disney companies, ESPN, had their own issues with mobile, but that's a completely different kettle of fish, but we will certainly get into that. So Mark, very nice to have you here today. Thanks, sitting alongside Mark, I'm very, very pleased, coming all the way in from Northern California, is Ravi Berwal. And Ravi is with Nokia and is senior technology expert at Nokia's Technical Services and Consultancy Forum up in Northern California. Very, very responsible for developing some of the new forms and applications within Nokia devices, and we'll be probing some of the stuff that Nokia are going to do, particularly with the success of their N-series devices that have really proven to be an important watershed, not only for Nokia's multimedia division, but also just generally in terms of enhancing user experience, which for all of us in this room is a very important aspect. To give you a little bit of background, Ravi originally started his career at Siemens, and he certainly has been very involved in the whole process of applications and user experience on devices. So Ravi, very warm welcome, and hopefully you're going to tell us about some of the new devices that Nokia have got in the works for the next 6 or 9 months. So welcome, a nice warm round of applause, and namaste! Then right next to Ravi, we have very pleased to have with us Doug Craig. Doug is with the Discovery Networks, and Doug is quite a veteran in terms of Discovery, been with Discovery for 9 years. Prior to that was at MTV Networks, and prior to that at Nielsen. And prior to being in his present role at Discovery Networks, where he's effectively Vice President of Programming, Doug was very responsible for heading up all of the programming at Animal Planet. So in terms of animal behavior and the way that humans translate to that, I'm sure Doug is a specialist on that. Doug, I'm sure you've seen some strange animal behavior in the corridors of this hotel.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels with the mobile world and animal.
Definitely a lot of Animal House behavior here. We certainly saw some last night in the early hours of the morning in the corridors, with some executives certainly running the gauntlet. Very interesting. Wasn't on the front page of the LA Times, but maybe it'll be on the front page of the National Enquirer next week. So Doug, very pleased to see you here, because Discovery and the work that Doug does also considers all of the other aspects of the Discovery Network, including, of course, Animal Planet and the Travel Channel, as well as the Discovery Health Channel and the various Discovery programming channels. But specifically, we're going to be looking at some key areas in relation to what Discovery is doing, and particularly with their ever-widening footprint. This should be a very interesting case for us to learn a little bit more about how one of the substantial networks really looks at programming. So let's give Doug a warm round of applause. Doug, you come here from DC,
Yes.
come to California. What's the tenor like in DC? Everyone talking about the elections rather than television?
Yeah, basically. That's about all the time. Everything is politics all the time.
Yeah, I was watching the Animal Planet the other night. I saw the political candidates in the DC area, so it seems to be that's where it's going. Very pleased, right next to Doug, someone really special who's come all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'd like to introduce Tammy Franklin. And Tammy is the Vice President of Business Development at Turner Broadcasting Systems. And Tammy comes from a very interesting background after being at Yale and Harvard, then worked for Knight Ridder, the print media company, but more specifically has been involved with Turner for quite a while, involved in executing all of non-linear distribution for broadband, interactive and wireless platforms. And prior to that, Tammy also worked with Motorola. So Tammy comes from a very, very interesting background, started off initially in business and business development, and primarily business, but then moved into media, and now speaks for a very important media development and media company, obviously Turner Systems. And so we'll be getting some very interesting views from Tammy in terms of what she's doing. What is also important to note about Tammy, she really has a very, very comprehensive CV, is that she was also part of the team that helped launch Boost Mobile. So to give you an idea, Motorola, Boost, Knight Ridder, a very, very comprehensive background in terms of media and its transition to mobile. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tammy. Tammy, very nice to have you. Sitting next to Tammy, Mike Bailey. Mike is a Southern California native, and Mike is Senior Director of Programming for MediaFlow USA, the Qualcomm $800 million gorilla, which Qualcomm have been working on over the last few years, really redefining the whole notion of television on mobile handsets. And Mike is responsible for programming the MediaFlow service, identifying content opportunities, collaborating with content providers, and determining MediaFlow's overall content packaging and positioning. Very, very important when you consider that MediaFlow, looking at some 8 channels of television on the phone with fantastic delivery, with great resonance, and of course the Qualcomm chipset, which is really powering so much of the Korean mobile business. Korea, of course, such a lead territory in mobile. Mike's background, Mike, prior to joining MediaFlow, was involved with Intrigue, the syndication company that really started to define the way in which syndication was starting to be evolved in terms of content owners looking for some kind of control over their content. And in terms of prior to that, Mike was also very responsible for worldwide programming for On Command, where he was responsible for doing many, many deals with the movie and television studios here in the United States. So let's give Mike a big welcome. Came all the way from San Diego today. And then last but by very no means least, I'd like to introduce you to Daniel Tibbetts. Daniel is the Executive VP at GoTV Networks. And Dan's had a lot of experience in traditional and also new media experience. Now, I want to set the record straight here. Many people have heard of the Mobisode, and I'm very pleased to say that, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel was one of the 2 guys that actually came up with the whole notion of the Mobisode. It has been said that others actually created the Mobisode, but here it is. This was really the genesis of where this came about, and obviously this word is now firmly rooted in our vernacular in terms of mobile. And just to give you a little bit of background, Dan spent some 16 years in the entertainment business, previously worked at enterprises including CBS Enterprises, Fireworks Television, Papazian Hirsch, where he was one of the team that was responsible for developing that fantastic HBO series, Rome. Just can you show the cover of your notebook? Have a
Just
look
so
at
happens I have one.
You recognise that graphic there? That's a wonderful series which showed that certainly blood was definitely thicker than water. And so Daniel has been responsible for many different credits and should bring a very interesting dynamic from the point of view of GoTV, which really was one of the great pioneers in terms of mobile television. So ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. We've got a very interesting Catholic group of specialists that are going to be looking at some of the issues that we're going to try and surf through and talk about with some provocation today. And what we wanted to do was just to try and, as a scene setter, if you will, go to each of the panelists just to ask them to give us a snapshot of what they're currently working on in terms of most immediate priorities. So Tammy, ladies first, just give us some sense of what you're doing with TBS.
Sure. So, the good news is that
Just go a little closer to your mic.
Sure. At Turner, we've got a broad portfolio of brands. You're probably familiar with them, ranging from kind of TCM, TBS, TNT, all the way through to Turner Sports, PGA and NASCAR.com, as well as the animation products, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, and CNN. So what are we working on? That's a loaded question in that a lot of our brands are at different points of the continuum from a rights perspective and from a maturity in the wireless space and nonlinear platform perspective. So you might have some brands such as TBS and TNT whose really genesis of that brand was about taking other content, repackaging it under a certain genre, and presenting it to an end user in a really compelling fashion. So there's some rights issues there for them to enter some of the other platforms. So they're a little less mature in this space. Go far forward to the right side of the continuum with animation products like Cartoon and Adult Swim. Very progressive, doing unique, getting unique programs scheduled for the wireless space, cutting unique deals and exclusives with some of the carriers to carry some of that content. So really it runs the gamut because there's so many brands in the portfolio. So kind of spend my time really continually working with the current wireless platforms, the carriers that exist today, the big four, as well as some of the regional and Canadian ones, and then dealing with folks like Mike and some of the emerging wireless platforms like the broadcast television.
So tell me, the translation from big screen to small screen and the specific, almost peculiar requirements of mobile, how do you reconfigure what effectively is a larger screen format into an effective user experience in the small screen? You can translate cartoon, yes, but
Yes.
in terms of wider TVS, if you're looking at classic movies, for example, where you're looking at snacking TV, how do you approach that dilemma?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. So it's an evolution, right? The product portfolio varies by brand. So if you look at a TCM, really, most of our wireless products, they're going to be around trivia-based types of things because, again, we've got some content rights ownership issues, and the products weren't shot for mobile, right? These are, in some cases, like Turner Classic Movies, they're very dated. Mobile was not even a thought at the time. So you enter the market with the right products for that brand. Then you move over to cartoon, as you mentioned, and you can produce all unique and exclusive things just for a unique platform. In the middle, you've got, for instance, a TBS, which owns the genre of funny, and there are some unique ways you can shoot certain comedic type of programming in a way that plays very well in wireless, and we're experimenting with some of those things, such as stand-up comedy.
So very interesting. We're going to come back to you with some other interesting questions. Mark, Disney Mobile. Now, certainly the last 2 weeks have been dominated by the $180 million cul-de-sac that ESPN Mobile had, and that's got nothing to do with Disney Mobile. Important to stress that differential, not for any other reason other than Disney Mobile and its user experience for Disney content is very different from ESPN. Give us a little bit of a scene set for Disney Mobile. What's the essential audience that you're looking for with Disney Mobile, and how does this relate to handsets?
Sure. So Disney Mobile is a wireless service designed specifically for the family's needs and wants in mind. So we're the first wireless service that really came out with applications that address parents' needs for managing family communications and really the budget. So things like location-based services, call control, spending limits. So whereas you would know that Disney would deliver content, on top of that we know that utility type of applications is really where the value is seen in terms of our value proposition. So
who's your target audience?
our target audience is really parents, primarily moms with kids 8 to 14.
8 to 14. So does that mean that it's essentially looking at Disney cartoon, or is this looking at characters drawn from, say, High School Musical? Or to give us some sense of how you draw your content repository.
Sure. So we did a lot of research, and in the beginning we knew that kids are aspirational at heart, so we knew that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to design a form factor that had, you know, Mickey ears on it, because John, this is our phone, so Johnny, you know, or Jane on the playground, we don't want them to, you know, feel embarrassed to flip out their, you know, flip phone like the Samsungs of the world out there.
So you mean at 8 years old, kids know what's cool and what's not cool?
Oh yeah. But you know, to address your point, I mean, from 8 to 14, there's a huge maturation in the kids' ability to manage responsibly, you know, communications and consume entertainment. So, you know, really at the younger part of the age tier, it's about security and safety. And as we get up into the older demographic, really the 10 to 12-year-old, you're right. I mean, we've got franchises and characters that appeal to different segments, whether it be Disney Channel or from our networks. But we also provide content from competing studios, which is what a lot of people don't really think about first and foremost. So we also have content from games and personalization content from all different aggregators, so EA and Sony. So we really want to offer content that kids know and love. But if they want an immersive experience around Disney content, we certainly can give that to them.
So how does it work? You've got Disney Mobile. The undercarriage of Disney Mobile is provided by Sprint?
Right, so
So is this similar to the Virgin Mobile structure where the entire undercarriage is done? What about, for example, things like your data hosting and customer call centers? Who does that?
yeah, so we took the approach that, you know, why did Disney get into the mobile service provider space? And I think, you know, a lot of people could ask that question, and maybe really where it comes back to is, you know, Disney's expected to deliver high-end experiences, you know, immersive entertainment experiences. And so we know that, you know, today with technology being so intertwined with the actual consumer experience, we see it very difficult to separate content from delivery. So, you know, we took ownership and control over all the touch points of where the customer experiences our content. So that's everything from, you know, managing the data platform to the call centers and, you know, procuring the handsets and everything that we wouldn't feel comfortable handing off to a third party.
So those touch points are clearly a very, very important focus for you, because if you can analyze and determine what the touch point is, it clearly is going to help you aggregating a much broader consumer base.
Absolutely. I mean, I use the analogy as, you know, I think most people think of the theme parks for Disney, and also if you look at some of the animated titles, I mean, really, you know, from a technology perspective, in both the theme parks and with the animated titles, you know, the technology is transparent, but it's there in a significant way. What really comes to the forefront is the entertainment experience and really delivering something unique to the customer. And so that's a similar approach that we took with Disney Mobile.
And do you look at any particular kind of costing factor for a handset? Is there a limit that you find with parents in terms of above which handset cost price they won't go?
Yeah, so today, I mean, the major carriers are subsidizing the handsets, particularly in the high-end EVDO handsets. So
right.
we know that can be a costly proposition. But with that said, we know that, you know, really the $100 price range is about the threshold of what we would sell a handset to a parent to. But, you know, we're very competitive out there. But I think today, you know, I would say that we have to be very careful as an industry not to subsidize the handset down to where it has no value in the consumer's mind. I mean, I think today you see a lot of people getting handsets for free that, you know, really truly have unique capabilities. So, you know, we want to be conscious of that and showcase the capabilities of the handset.
So if the telcos figure that a subscriber acquisition cost is $300 to $400 per subscriber, how do you factor in what your subscriber acquisition cost is going to be? Is that a metric that you look at when you're developing your wider array of content?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the acronym CPGA, cost per gross ad. You know, and certainly, you know, we look at leveraging the Disney network of advertising and all of our synergies with our other business units. But at the end of the day, we are competing for mind share with the large carriers, so we have to do, I think, a very good job at point of sale to educate users on really the value-added services that today are just, you know, somewhat hidden when you go to, let's say, a larger carrier store today. So we're just out there, soft launched in June, and, you know, we're really ramped
So
up.
soft launch in June of this year, soft launch. When is your formal launch?
Yeah, so we started running national ads in August, and we're in wireless independent retailers across the country, and we have our
Are you in
own.
the big box stores?
We have not made that announcement yet, but we are growing our distribution significantly. And so we have our own kiosks. We really launched, you know, from a controlled mechanism in major malls across America. But web and telesales have been very good for us. And so, we wanted to start out seeding the Disney enthusiast base with, the natural inclination to buy. And you'll see us in a significant way over the holidays, being that this is the most, the growth barrier in terms of subscriber acquisition.
So would it be fair to assume that just looking at the various touch points for Disney in a wider corporate sense, that's where you will have an approach to the parents to be able to make them aware of the fact that Disney Mobile is both healthy and nutritious as well as economically viable for them?
Yeah, you won't see us on Cocoa Puffs, I guess. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, Disney's recognized as a trusted brand for families, and so we see a lot of. We think it makes a lot of sense to extend it across our business units.
Now, Doug Craig, Discovery, now really developing a lot of heft almost on a global basis. What's your viewership like in terms of Discovery? How many households are keyed into it? Are you part of all of the major cable broadcasting bouquets?
Yeah, so for Discovery, our biggest push right now is for Discovery Mobile Channel, which we launched back in August.
What's the pickup been like?
Well, we're on 2 distributors right now in conversations with a lot of other folks, and I think by the end of the year you'll see a lot more in the way of distribution. But the big push for us is, with 17 networks just alone in the U.S. and over 100,000 hours worth of content, and the thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the content that we've produced over the years is mostly all nonfiction, and we will hold a lot of the rights to it. So we don't have to worry about paying residuals to things like cheetahs and gazelles and things like that. And the nature of our
the meerkat doesn't need an extra royalty.
Exactly. No green M&Ms only. So we have a lot of this content, and what we're really trying to do is figure a way to position this content so people can have the world of Discovery in the palm of their hand, so they can consume our content whenever and wherever they are. And we're really focusing right now on this mobile streaming channel, which is it's about a 4-hour loop, a mixture of short form and long form content.
How long is short form?
Short form can be anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes. We're experimenting with some longer things. In the long form category, we're looking now at airing full-length hour shows, which will be about 45 minutes if you take out a lot of the commercial time. But we're figuring ways to take this content, to port it to people, onto their devices. As I mentioned, this is primarily a streaming channel, but we're also doing a lot of VOD type clips. And a lot of those VOD type clips are great because a lot of our content from Travel Channel or Health has very, very high utility. So if you're in a certain place in the world and you want to find information, Travel Channel content is great. If there's someone that's near and dear to you that may have a health condition or something like that, if you can have access to video clips on how to deal with diabetes, things like that. So we have, a lot of our content is kind of on the utility side, a lot of it's kind of more on the entertainment side, which is closer aligned to some of our more popular television shows like Mythbusters or Miami, things like that. So, we're doing streaming, we're doing VOD, and we're also starting to roll out some applications as well. For example, there's a show on TLC called The Take Home Chef. And I don't know if any of you have seen this, but the story goes like this. There's a damsel in distress in a supermarket trying to make a purchase decision, trying to make a big meal, and in swoops our chef Austin, who's a strapping young Australian, who comes in and says, looks like you're having some problem making a meal. And I'm chef, let me go home with you and I'll make this great meal like you've never seen before. So very highly entertaining, useful information as well. And what we've done is we've designed this application where viewers can text message us and they'll sign them up and they can get recipes for these, or shopping lists for these recipes on their phone. So if you're in the store, you know exactly what you need to get to make these terrific meals.
So Doug, this sounds great, sounds really interesting, 100,000 hours of content, 17 different channels. How do you get the consumer to even understand this, number one? And secondly, which of the major telcos have already co-opted the Discovery brand, per se, as a content channel?
Well, to answer the latter question, not really at liberty to say who, but we are talking with the
Come on, Doug, tell us just a couple. There are only 5 major.
Only if this man here in the second row tells me I can.
Oh, okay, he's not allowed to say anything. Okay. But generally, who is your customer?
So our customer are the Discovery viewers, but they're also the next generation of Discovery viewers. There are a lot of people out there
So if you had to define the next generation, what would that be?
Are you
What
looking
is the
for
demo?
A demo, we'd probably say, 18 to 34, probably skewing slightly more male. But again, with brands like TLC and home and health, there is a strong female appetite there as well.
Okay, so now you've got this content, you've got deals clearly with telcos. We'll get into the D2C space a little later, but how do you actually educate the consumer such that they know where and how to get snacking on television?
Well, what you'll start to see more and more of are using our resources, whether they be on air, online, things like that, where we can let people know that these are services and platforms that are available. So that's one of the great things, like Turner, I would imagine, where you have some internal resources that you can use. So you'll be seeing a lot more in that space over the next 3 months.
And so essentially what you try and do is try and get the telcos to carry it in the same way as you get a Comcast to carry the Discovery channels.
Yeah, it's not the same content per se, but
No,
yeah,
cool.
it's a distribution model. Yeah.
So I'm interested in what you see as short form and long form, because in Europe certainly the model has tended towards 2 to 3 minute short form snacking, as they call it.
Right.
But clearly there is some education to be done from a consumer standpoint.
Yes.
Well, Mike, media flow. Hearing what Doug has said about the various channels at Discovery, just give us some kind of idea. Media flow has been going for a couple of years now. Is it true that you've got 8 channel designations within media flow? Is it more or less? What's the current makeup of media flow? Give us, for a Martian who just landed here at Lowe's Hotel, how would you articulate media flow's proposition?
Well, we haven't gone anywhere yet. We haven't launched yet.
Ah.
So let's, set the record there.
So there's still some of the $800 million is still in the bank?
That's correct.
Very good, I'm glad to hear that.
Hope we can keep it under that. MediaFlow, we're building a nationwide network to deliver high-quality TV content to cell phones across the country. We own a nationwide network to do that, and so the valuable spectrum to accomplish that. The compression technology will enable about 20 simultaneous video streams.
Right.
So as part of our launch, we're not going to use all of that up for the launch. So what we've done is, with our valued partner Verizon, we have agreed to launch 8 to 10 channels. I don't really like to use the word channels, but that's what they are. And that will be a rich mix of cable broadcast content. In some cases, you'll hold it right up next to the TV. It's the same simulcast. And in other cases, whether it's due to rights or maybe appropriate day parts, other content makes more sense. And so there's a lot going on in regard to the development of the technology, the clearing of the spectrum, the making ready all of the mobile content as we march towards this Q1 launch date with Verizon.
Right, so your launch is Q1 on Verizon. Now, is your relationship with Verizon conditioned by the fact that effectively Verizon is a CDMA provider? Qualcomm's chipset essentially is rooted in CDMA. If you look at Korea, some of the other major telcos, certainly China Telecom? Was China Mobile?
It's actually unrelated. It's nothing to do with the CDMA technology.
Uh-huh.
There may be some brew concepts deep in the software, but really it is a second chip in the phone, not CDMA dependent whatsoever.
So you can also operate in a GSM
GSM,
network?
that's correct. And effectively it's an overlay network. So the ever-growing anticipated burden of media delivery over the wireless networks is going to collapse under its own weight. And as a result, you really need an overlay network to handle rich media, to handle broadcasts to where content can be delivered to 1 or million simultaneously, and there's no impact or degradation of the voice network.
How does that affect the load balancing that a telco provider has? Is this cached to the telco during off-peak hours and then basically syringed down to the handset on demand?
No, we can push in a podcast way some content to the phone, but really the launch headline is all about join-in-progress broadcast. So it's entirely independent of the network. It's a second overlay network.
And so give us an idea of some of the channel identities that you've got to get a lot of rights acquisition, rights clearance and so forth. What would be some of the channel ideas that are coming through in terms of the Q1
Sure.
launch?
nobody really says this but me, I guess, but it's kind of an anti-MVNO strategy. I mean, it is really about, Verizon has 55 million customers. How wide a net can we cast to get as many of those as possible? So the lineup will consist of a very rich mix of live sports, live news, entertainment, and even kids programming.
So
From the names you know and love already.
So, but live is obviously a key feature. This is going to be some of the secret sauce of what MediaFlow's offering is.
As we look at what are the real creative solutions to this, phase one is really going to be about connecting to you to where you were just previously not connected. So I'm missing the game. I want to catch up on the news, or I want to watch my favorite TV show, and I'm away from the internet or a TV. Now I have an option for that.
Very interesting. So Q1 is when we can look for it, and
That's right.
Initially only through Verizon. Are you going to be launching this through the other operators?
The expectation is to launch to the other carriers. We haven't made any of their announcements. Certainly we're deep in discussions and tests with them. We already have existing relationships with them, so look to be determined.
Which of the telcos is really gets it faster than others? Are there some that are better than others? I mean, I know this is a bit of a trick question, but
Verizon.
Okay, well, all right, we'll be diplomatic for this particular point. And let's go to Ravi. Ravi, you with Nokia. Obviously, Nokia's chipset, the relationship they now have in terms of the Symbian platform, the enormous success of the N series. Ravi, I believe that you've got a little test that you want to get some of the audience involved. What's that in front of you there on the table?
Sure. I have an N-series multimedia computer, and I would like to see how the audience is doing right now.
Okay, so hold on for a second. What are you holding up there? That's a new Nokia device?
This is a new Nokia N-series multimedia computer, and it has a TV out, which can be connected to the TV, and right now I'm projecting it on a projector.
There's a very handsome guy in the front seat there, front row there. Oh, that's pretty good. Let's get it focused. So this is live from your device?
Yes, this is live from my device.
Okay, so this is the N93.
This is an N93, and it is a Symbian-based device, so it is a smartphone.
And what are some of the capabilities of this N93? And tell us about the N95. Everybody in Helsinki is talking about the N95, saying that it's really an exponential leap beyond even the N93 in the palm of your sweaty little hand there.
Yes, this device has a lot of capabilities. This is a very smart device, and it supports a lot of new technologies. One of them being like you can watch TV while you are on move, anywhere, anytime. And secondly, it has you can record a movie from it, which has a DVD quality, and then you can burn the movie on the DVD. I would like to just show you a demo of a movie which has been recorded using this device, which has a very it has a very good DVD quality. And
this is an absolutely shameless Nokia plug, but nonetheless we thought it would give you some idea of what one can expect in terms of future devices, and clearly this is going to be similar. MediaFlow has obviously got their own view on it, but just to give you some idea. So this was taken with the Nokia device, rather?
Yes, this is taken from this device only, Nokia N93. And the quality of the movie is very good. It's a DVD quality.
So this is just random footage that you took with that particular device?
And this is coming directly from the device.
And how does the music get added?
The music is already there.
Very good. So that's great. So Ravi, in terms of where Nokia is going, tell us a little bit about some of the things that Nokia are now including within some of the new N-series devices.
We have a Nokia. The N-series is like it's a multimedia computer, and it has a lot of new features. The Nokia N95, as Ralph was talking about earlier, supports the LBS chip in it. So you can you will never get lost. As Mark was saying, Disney Mobile has LBS support in it. So wherever you go, you never get lost using the LBS. And the mobile devices are like they are personal. You always carry them along with you. So if you have those type of facilities like LBS, watching TV wherever you go, that is a good for like if you're traveling a lot, you don't want to miss any sports or any type of game, you can watch them anytime, anywhere using these type of multimedia computers.
So Daniel, you've heard from the handset maker, the implementation of the chipset and the software from MediaFlow. We've heard from Discovery, from Tammy and from Mark. But really in terms of some of the stuff that you've been involved with at GoTV Networks, you've been trying to define what the mobile television experience has actually been. And really, in terms of where the rubber hits the road and gets to the consumer, you guys have been pretty much in a leadership position in terms of creating and developing that first channel exposure for mobile television. So give us some sense of how you guys approach the definition of a channel for what you do, and what are some of the key constituent properties that people in the audience should be aware of in terms of developing content for this new medium?
Well, first off, our mission is to create the finest made-for-mobile content and distribute it to as many people as possible. So we can work with each one of these partners here today.
Including MediaFlow?
Absolutely, to do that. And actually, it's safe to say that we are the largest producer and distributor of made-for-mobile content in the U.S. today. We have 10.
Why is that? How can
We actually today produce over 300 original episodes every single week of made-for-mobile content that we
give us an
distribute across
example
our
of what
10
they are?
channels. Well, our channels, we have Fantasy Sports Edge. So every day we produce a show called The Front Page. We produce that show 4 times a day and deploy it via the mobile premium channel Fantasy Sports Edge to consumers who have an affinity for fantasy sports. And that answers another part of your question is, who is that consumer?
Exactly.
It's the individual who has the affinity for hip-hop and wants our hip-hop official channel, or alternative rock and buys our alt-rock channel, or again, fantasy and buys our Fantasy Sports Edge product. It's somebody who ultimately wants to have that content with them 24/7 on their cell phone to get the latest in scores and information, to track their players, track their teams, play different leagues against their friends. It becomes not only a information, but it's information, it's entertainment, and it's also a tool that the consumer can utilize within their lifestyle.
So if I'm Joe Schmo, the consumer, how do I get to know what your service is? Where do I get exposed to?
Well, ultimately, the consumer today makes choices first upon carrier, and ultimately that choice is based on, the perception of the carrier's signal, the ability not to drop calls or the ability to deliver great mobile service. Next, price point, and then you get into, once you've decided what handset device you would like, the carrier would say at the storefront, unlimited data. We know that from that point, the decision process is, okay, unlimited data, that's great, I can browse the web, I can do these different functions, buy ringtones, buy wallpapers, what else? Well, there's also video content or downloadable applications that enable that functionality and video. So that is obviously one way at the pure point of purchase, when you decide you want unlimited data and what other media and information do you want. Also, we work with content.
How do I get it though? Let's say, for example, I'm on Singular and I want to get the array of channels that you provide, or I'm interested in fantasy football of some form or fantasy baseball. How would I get it? Do I go to the Singular retail store? How do you?
Well, so if you have a Singular service, you use your phone and you click through. If you have the Singular CV service, which is their media deck, you can buy College All Access or Hip Hop Official by going to your phone, clicking, and paying $4.99 per month. It's a monthly recurring charge, and every day we update and refresh that content. We're also on the media deck, so you can go into your applications deck on your phone and put a downloadable application on your phone. And again, it's a video application that has all that great quality video plus the functionality of an application, very much like the mobile gaming business did. That's what I mean by downloadable application.
So as far as the consumer is concerned, it's a seamless relationship with their telco provider, except it's just another whole content pathway that they can basically choose to go down.
Correct. Every month the charge is on your carrier bill, and again, it's a monthly recurring charge.
So very interesting. So here we have a situation where the whole world of mobile television starting to gather some momentum, and I'd like to open this up to everybody on the panel. One of the big difficulties here in the United States is the still low level of penetration of 3G devices. What would you generally think, and so everybody, what percentage of the 217 million subscribers in the United States, I think it's just 217 million, are in fact 3G devices capable of delivering a television-like experience, or mobile television experience? Tammy?
I think it's in the...
Can you speak into your mic, Tammy, so people can hear you?
I think it's in the mid-teens. I think it's like 16, 17%, if I'm correct. I think it's something like that. Certainly
So we're looking at south of 40 million devices?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
not
low.
very good.
Yeah, it's low. I mean, I think what we're trying to do at Turner's, we recognize that most of the penetration of devices right now, the installed base is 2.5G. And 2.5G is fairly capable of doing some things, right? I mean, it plays back clips very well. So to your point about VOD and clips, there's certainly a place for that today. I think from a wireless video product perspective, it's going to be a portfolio of offerings. Clips are going to play well or fairly well in 2.5G today. There's some things you can do with video and flash and animation. So there are things that you can do right now with your product in 2.5G world. Having said that, we are moving a little more towards some streaming products and putting together, as Mike was talking about, some products that are more similar to what you're used to on cable, with the linear program types of products. And I think that most brands, most fairly large, significant brands with a loyal customer base are going to have to run the gamut of products. I think you're going to have clip-based services. I think that you're also going to have to start to develop some streaming services because 3G, albeit low right now, the installed base refreshes their phone every 18 months or sooner. So it won't be long before 3G becomes a pretty significant part of the installed base.
If I may, Tammy brings up an excellent point, and it's something that isn't always addressed at the conferences. The conferences seem to always talk about 3G and full motion video on 3G handsets. It is a very, very low percent of 3G handsets that are in the market. 68% of all handsets in the market today are 2.5G. And there is a great experience that can be had on those devices. One of the things that GoTV, when they first launched mobile video service in 2003, it was on a 2.5 or lower handset, so only 1K of memory could be delivered to that handset, and so it was a slideshow basis. Today, a 1X phone can deliver 10 frames per second, but if produced properly, that can be a great experience for that handset.
So how does one go about developing content for television content for devices? Doug and Mike, try and give us some sense of what the approach is from a creative point of view when you're trying to create a really good user experience. What are some of the golden rules, if you could suggest something to the creatives here in the audience, of what they should see as kind of central disciplines for developing content for this medium?
I'll go in. We one of the things that we focus on when we're creating a lot of unique made-for-mobile content, and by that I mean content that may be in and around some of our linear network brands, but sometimes that content is exclusive in the sense that it's not really about a TV show, but more about an experience, a discovery experience. We use two words, light and tight. And by that we mean a lot of lighting on these shots, and close-ups are really, really good idea, because when you're looking at a small device that people are holding somewhere around this far away from their eyeballs, it's important to give them content that makes sense. Audio adds a lot to the experience, but it's still a visual medium. And we expect people, when you have to deal with frame rates and things like that, those wide panoramic sweeping shots don't always come out so well on a mobile device. So you do have to produce things differently. We do a lot of repurposing with some of our existing content, but what we try and look for there are those types of shots where we can do center cuts. Again, talking heads, where in the linear TV experience are kind of a no-no for us. In the mobile experience, sometimes those are really helpful.
Mike, is the same in sports programming, that when you're constructing sports, your sports channels?
The reference point you have is the existing products in the market today, and the kind of the dial-up like connection that you get. with up to 30 frames a second, high quality picture. I mean, you can read the scroll on CNN. You can see the pitcher pitch the ball. I mean, a big screen TV is still big screen, about 12 inches from your eyes.
Right.
So rather than focus on the creative side now, we're really much more about the network itself and the quality of the video itself. And it makes watching live sports a very enjoyable experience on basically a screen the size of a video iPod, which is already in the market.
And Mark, in terms of the Disney experience, clearly you've got a huge amount of your own content you have to mine, whether it's, obviously in your case, you're not sending Desperate Housewives to the 8 to 14-year-old demo. But in terms of the content that you are constructing, do you sit down with the creative teams in the various Disney satellites, working out what might be most appropriate for small screen viewership by a youth audience?
Sure. So we have a publishing division that's separate than ours, and we have content, rich media content, video and music from our music labels going out to the major carriers. For Disney Mobile as an MVNO, similar to what we were talking about with Virgin, we launched on a 2.5G network. We're currently evaluating moving to broadband, but there's certain conditions that we got to evaluate in order to justify moving to a broadband environment. With that said, we're a media company at heart, and our heritage is delivering great experiences. So I think you can foresee us moving down that path. But going back to the cost curves of handsets needing to come down, really looking at the offering in terms of what kind of native capabilities are on these handsets to deliver a unique experience.
And which handsets are you using primarily for the Disney offering?
This is an LG handset. We have Pantech as well. But what I mean by that is there's complementary content in some cases where you can look at the desktop and the mobile playing off each other. So how do you increase the experience as you make that handoff and take advantage of whether it's SMS or presence in the handset or things of that nature, so that you could, actually deliver something value add.
So your iconography on the handset is absolutely critically important for your experiences and the pathway to a wider realm of experience.
Right, and I think the other way that I'm looking at it is video as a product makes a lot of sense, but I think video as an enabler in terms of being able to enhance the discovery process and bring people into the storefront that ultimately allows them to make a purchase decision in a more emotional way. I mean, you want to get people excited, so I think that's another angle that's really important in the industry.
Ravi, tell us about Nokia's whole approach with DBVH. DVBH.
Yeah.
And what is it, for the uninitiated, what is DVBH, what does that acronym stand for?
So Nokia is working on DVBH, that is the Digital Video Broadcast Standard for the handheld devices. And Nokia is part of the steering committee there, and we already have the approval from the European Telecommunication Standard Institute for that. And DVBH standard testing are being already done in the US, China, Asia, Singapore, Australia, and several other countries. What DVBH does is it makes the content is already there, the broadcast content is already there. What the DVBH part is, it makes the content ready for these devices which have less memory footprint, the screen size is less, and the major thing that needs to be considered when we are deploying the content on these devices is the battery power, which is we need to design the content accordingly so that the battery is not drained away. So Nokia is working on that standard, which is an open standard, as compared to other standards which are also available, which are closed, and we have to pay a license fee for that.
Mike, what is the media flow equivalent of DVBA, or would that
That's the equivalent.
that media flow is the equivalent?
That's the equivalent.
So it's effectively the son of EVDO.
No, again, an entirely separate
Right.
network, separate chipsets, separate technology.
Now tell me something I want to ask you particularly, the whole issue of rights and this thicket of rights clearance, rights acquisition, the difficulty of going retrospectively to claim new rights. Tell us about some of the challenges you have from the perspective of TBS in terms of rights. Is this a big problem area for you in terms of constructing new content for mobile?
I think we keep a lot of attorneys employed, gainfully employed with the rights issue. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, the properties are really in different places. TNT and TBS and TCM, at the time of their formation, we weren't anticipating the need for rights on a wireless format. So we're going back and, as you said, retrospectively trying to acquire those rights and or move forward with original programming, which was not in its original philosophy when you thought about just doing business with the cable MSO. So that's something we're doing. For animation, news, rights are not an issue. So it really runs the gamut. But it is a painful process to go back and secure and acquire all those rights. And of course, you know, wireless and many other nonlinear platforms are extremely hot right now. So folks who have those rights aren't necessarily willing to give them up, and certainly not at a low cost.
So it looks as though the cost of acquiring these rights is going to escalate as the mobile pantheon expands?
Absolutely. It's already kind of risen exponentially. Folks understand that this is, I think mobile, you know, broadcast, TV, wireless video is something that is definitely going to happen. I don't think it's an if, it's a when and what. You know, when will it really take off? When we see the hockey stick, there's debate over when that will be, but we definitely see it forthcoming. And what do people want to ingest in a wireless kind of mobile format?
And Doug, and this also for you, Dan, this whole issue of the struggle that consumers have of trying to navigate through the WAP deck of the telcos and the oncoming emergence of direct-to-consumer. Certainly in Europe, this is something that's becoming very, very much front of center, where you don't necessarily have to navigate through the WAP portal of a telco. And I was in Singapore last week and saw some presentations from some of the very advanced Korean companies, Singaporean companies, where certainly D2C is starting to play an emerging role in the Asia-Pacific market. Are you seeing something similar in this sense, where the customer really gets frustrated in terms of the slow navigation through a telco's portal?
Well, first off, certainly there's a learning curve to navigate through the phone to find the various products you want. I'm sure many of you have gone through that looking for ringtones, wallpapers, and downloading games, but there's a huge consumer base out there that does that today. And that same process is what you go through to download mobile video. One of the things we do is, first off, we work with our carrier partners. We're airing on Verizon, Sprint, Cingular, Nextel, Boost. And it's really about giving the consumer information about a product and giving them an easy way to then go in and buy it. So, for example, we work with our partner, The Improv. We have the exclusive mobile rights to Improv Comedy, and we can work with them to send out an email blast to people who opt into the Improv newsletter. And if they want to get Improv to go, simply text Forgo TV, laugh, and get our product Laugh Riot. Matter of fact, you guys can do that now. Just take out your phone, text Forgo TV, laugh, and we will send you a link, and it'll take you right to the WAP deck so you can buy Laugh Riot.
So this is a means of bypassing the difficulty for the consumer, not so much that...
Not bypassing the carrier, correct, but giving the consumer...
Bypassing the difficulty.
Correct. Easy access and really doing marketing with the carriers to let the consumer know simple ways they can buy the product.
Doug, give us your experience in this area.
I think as a content provider and owner, I think, you know, we kind of see some parallels with the linear television model, where, you know, we're happy to work with our cable partners, we're happy to work with our satellite partners, we're starting to work with IPT delivery of our linear networks. And we're really approaching mobile the same way. We're talking with the carriers directly. We launched our own direct-to-consumer website earlier this year.
Are you finding that people are actually going from your consumer website to mobile? Have you got a mobile block on your consumer website?
We have a link. We've just put that up recently, so it's a little too early to tell. But I think, you know, we want to make it as easy as possible for the consumer. We're a consumer-oriented company. We want to make it as seamless and easy as possible. So we're looking at all different avenues of distribution, and you know, we're kind of platform neutral in a sense. You know, it'd be fantastic to get on deck placement with some of the carriers, but we also believe that we need to have our own direct-to-consumer experience as well.
So really, we're moving into a cross-platform kind of thinking that also marries into the WAP deck of the telco, but by the same token allows the consumer to bypass that just in terms of ease of entry.
Yes.
Mike, you had a very interesting experience recently. Tell us about how you lived your life for 1 month without experiencing any conventional television. Tell us what you did and why you did it.
Well, I guess it kind of as a backup, I decided to take matters into my own hands. you'd come to conferences like this and you'd hear people kind of blather on about what's going to be big or what isn't going to be big, or original programming versus linear versus clips. So I looked at the calendar and I thought, when can I, like I said, take matters in my own hands? So I'm a big sports guy, so I took the opening of the NFL season, or September 11th, where I was going to, and I did, completely bypass or take TV out of my life to rely exclusively on content from the likes of VCast, MobiTV, Sprint TV, Amped, Mobile ESPN, and anything else that I could get my hands on.
GoTV.
Well, GoTV was on those services. And I cheated once with a Sling mobile media device to get a college football fix. But it was, I did this to really, there's going to be periods in your life where you're without any access to the TV. Well, why not make that 24 hours a day to try to really, reprogram my brain, if you will, around what do people really, really, really want in this,
And you managed to get the fix from your mobile device?
Well, and so as part of it, I dedicated an hour a night to spending time with the products I just mentioned. And I documented it thoroughly and tried to track the frustration, and I became very lonely at times. And my kids and wife would laugh at me because I had all my little chargers and my phone and everything. But it really was it was a very enlightening experience, and I spent a lot of time with GoTV and with CNN To Go and Discovery. Discovery has the first spot on a lot of services.
So what did you learn, Mike?
And so what I really learned was that as much as we talk about content, the service experience is very significant. The patience involved right now in transitioning from one video asset to another it takes dedication. I learned that a lot of folders are empty. I learned that buffering takes on a whole new meaning. That variety is still key, that linear is a better experience than clip.
Transition time?
That channel surfing can be a very rewarding experience when you have 10 or 15 minutes and you want to just simply see what's on. It can be a very rewarding experience. But I guess the biggest takeaway I had of everything is that, maybe no surprise, TV is very special. It's very special to have that access, and when you have it completely removed and all of a sudden enabled again, or not quite get there, but it made me realize and frame the thinking around how to program media flow going forward.
So this is a really interesting and almost unique empirical result that you got here, which clearly you didn't have to rely on someone like the research organizations to give you this. How did you impart this across to your team? Did some of the lessons that you learned, has this now configured into your content construction and your channel planning and your architecture?
Yes, it certainly has played a role. And it's still ongoing as you still monitor the developments. But that the challenge to the credit of the products in the market, they're doing the best they can with what they have right now. But there's a little bit of, are you really minding the store when like a clip is not labeled properly, or a promise around a piece of content that just isn't there. It just is not. It says it's there. It's not there. Battery life is critical. I found that with certain phones and services, I had to charge more frequently. I was prepared for that, of course, always.
Which is the best handset that you found in your perambulations? Come on, Mike.
Well, I have to say that, it probably has a lot to do with where I live. My Sprint connection is probably strongest, so I found Sprint TV to be, a very reliable service. And the experience was very different than VCast, which I didn't have any problem connecting to, but that was pick a title, wait for the clip to buffer and download, and then watch it. But transitioning from one service to another, frankly, was a mess. It really is a mess.
So Mark, what do you do to advise your publishing guys and some of these critical issues. Here you are trying to broaden the footprint of the Disney Mobile MVNO, but what Mike has raised here, and I'm sure Doug and Dan would agree and Tammy would agree, this is a really critical factoring in terms of the user experience and intuitive user experience.
Yeah, so our publishing division, provides the content. I can't speak on their behalf, but I think it comes down to any content publisher. You have to have standards in place. So, to go up and produce content for 300 different devices on any one carrier, you have to have standards and encoding processes that are going to ensure reliability and delivery. So I think, there's a lot to be said in terms of our overall industry, lowering the cost of production through standard processes, and also hopefully through some of the handset manufacturers getting some common standards as well.
Let's open up some questions to this very esteemed panel. A lot of experience here on the podium. Anyone in the audience with any particular issues or anything? Yes, ma'am. Give us your name and where you're from. Speak up.
Mary Corelli, here in Los Angeles.
Which company are you with?
Hearst Entertainment. I'm wondering what the most popular way of getting to programming on mobile phone is. People find it on a website on the internet, they find it on their service on the internet. How are they getting to you?
I can answer this. So if you want to get started on say for the Nokia side, I can tell you the story. We have a dedicated website called Forum, forum.nokia.com. It is a website dedicated for developers who wants to get started developing applications for Nokia-based devices. So if you go to that website, you will see there is a lot of information that is available. We have white papers. We have the SDKs which you can download and get started. You can develop your application using those SDKs, and then you can test it on those applications on the emulator. Once you have done that, you can contact us. We can give you a loaner device for testing purposes.
I'm interested more about the consumer. Where is the consumer finding out about programming?
Yeah, I think in multiple places. We try to think of our relationships with our wireless carriers just as we thought about our cable MSO partners in the early days of cable and helping them develop and market their service. So we try to market our product and the availability of our product on a carrier service as well as on our websites and other platforms. So for instance, CNN, you'll see things on CNN.com about video and where you can find it, as well as on our carrier sites. Right now, if you go to Verizon Vcast, you'll see when you hit video, you'll see a Cartoon Network ad for exclusive Cartoon Network episodes on Vcast, and we'll do a similar thing on Cartoon Network. So there's a lot of cross-marketing and cross-promoting.
I would just add, I don't think we're going to see major adoption until the wireless independent retailers as well as the carrier stores and others who sell services have a balanced approach in terms of selling value-added premium types of applications. Because today, most of the experiences you walk in, you buy a device, form factor, price. I think a lot of the carriers, and I applaud them, are getting better at introducing some of these value-added services, but I think it's going to take more time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Tammy or Mark. I think we don't underestimate the value of our partners. So working with people, Mobi TV or AM Smart Video, things like that, where we get a chance to work with them, use their internal resources to communicate to their users, using our own internal resources to help communicate what our partners are doing. So I think, to Mark's point, until the retailers get more on board and think adoption of people consuming video on their phones, that's all going to grow. And over the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to hit a point where that hockey stick curve, and the percentage of people that are using, a lot of people may have 3G phones right now, but how many of them are consuming video? And there's just an education process. So we look to work with our partners to try and communicate that.
Barry, the MediaFlow phones will have one button. Punch it, you'll go right into video.
What will the one button give you?
It'll launch the first service.
And this will be effectively on a Verizon handset. There'll be a MediaFlow button on the handset.
Vcast Mobile TV.
Vcast Mobile TV. Now, I was speaking to the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer at Verizon last week, who was telling me that he has 650 plus content applications on Verizon. And I said to him, how does the consumer, and how do you know which is really getting traction? When does something rise above the deck? Because one of the big problems for a content provider is you spend all of your inspiration, perspiration, and aspiration and trying to make a really great piece of content, and you don't know where in the deck you're going to be. So this is obviously something about search and discovery, which is a big issue certainly for Verizon and all operators. Is this something you also work on with the telcos in terms of trying to refine a better way of discovery?
Were you asking anyone in particular?
Sure.
I'll just jump in. So a couple of things. Yeah, part of kind of as the space is maturing and both the carriers and other partners and the content companies like Turner are learning a little bit more about the space, clearly search and discovery becomes a big issue. So a lot of the discussions we have with them is more strategic in nature in terms of we want to have longer, deeper relationships with them, help them market their product, but in return, we do need premium placement for premium brands. It's very much like the discussion we have with cable, CMO, so we expect that CNN will be somewhere on that first screen when you pop open your video service on any carrier's deck, so we have those conversations. Additionally, we have at Turner we spend quite a bit of money from a platform research and development perspective, quite a bit of technology actually at this content company, and so we do a lot of research on video search and discovery, and we are in trials with a lot of different companies about how you improve that so that we can be found even if the content is a little more buried than we'd like.
Let's take another question from the floor. Yes, sir. Your name and your company.
David Guterman. I deal with a variety of software applications and with a new mobile company that right now is called SailNet. And SailNet is aggregating sailing, skiing, polo, very high-end sports, so Rob Report Sports.
Rob Report Sports.
Yeah, that's again, we're working on that. And our question is, if there are already these multiple 500, 600, whatever it is, how are you or carriers dealing with people getting things that are niche channels or podcasts or video feeds? How do you conceptually, or regarding specific deals, it's one thing if things are Disney or Nickelodeon, very high, very branded, NFL. How do you deal with the more esoteric but very high value?
Good question.
For a niche market?
Dan, why don't you give it a go?
So I think our Fantasy Sports Edge product is one of the best examples of that. It's the Gore-Tex label on a Columbia jacket, where we have brands that if you're a Fantasy Sports Edge player and lover, it's all the brands that you trust. RotoWorld, RotoWire, Sporting News. Those brands are integrated into our Fantasy Sports Edge product, so that when you're looking for what's right for you as a consumer, you see those brands that you trust. You know you're going to get quality. We also work with those brand partners to, again, like we do with Improv, inform their consumer base that this product, this application is available to them and how they can get it.
And who's marketing that?
We work with our partners to market it.
I think we've got time for one more question in the house. Yes, sir. Yes, your name and where you're from?
Scott Jacobs with DemoCast.net. If Verizon's user agreement requires the user to agree not to stream or download using its broadband, whatever it's called, for instance, although Sprint doesn't, and of course, as these services are coming out, like VCast, the things that they provide, but of course, then you're limited to the bouquet that they provide, whereas users like to get video from everywhere on the streaming either through Flash or WSP.
So the question is?
So, what's the future of owner-initiated streaming as opposed to these aggregators?
So
Not
Swing
sure.
Media?
Yeah, not sure we understand the question. So in terms of, like, for instance, Turner allowing people to stream versus through a carrier them not being able to stream? Is that
No,
what
in
you-
terms of the carriers restricting the user to the so is the future going to be towards walled garden, which Verizon is putting forth, or what Sprint is putting forth, which is go to whatever website you want to stream that?
Well, Dan, haven't you've shown that you're not necessarily restricted by the straitjacket of the telco, even if you are within the telco walled garden.
Well, I think the starting point, if I'm understanding the question, I mean, the difference between and again, I think this is the question, the difference between, say, broadband, the internet, and mobile is everything you do on mobile, you pay for. When you buy your minutes plan, you're paying for those minutes. You pay for every ringtone, wallpaper, everything you do.
You're not paying
The
on
carriers
a
control
megabyte
that.
basis for streaming,
Say-
on your Power Vision. or
So
Power
you're
Vision.
thinking like Slingbox, right, which streams media through the carriers without the carrier being a partner?
No, I'm talking about your EVDO connection. It's on, you get unlimited data for $59.
Correct.
And so the more people who do that, the carriers are going to start to lose money. But will they, will Sprint continue to allow people to go to the Cartoon Network website, or will they restrict it and then force people to go through aggregators?
I think the answer to that is we don't know. The carriers, as you guys know, they're very conservative, right? And their economic business model is fairly tight. There's not a lot of room to play. You're paying $400 to acquire a customer. You're worried about churn. You're worried about getting your money back on that customer. To your point, the data rates, it hurts them with that heavy video coming through their pipes, right? It actually can be a money-losing proposition. So they're going to go slow. I think they're going to try different models. They're going to do it with very select partners that they trust and see what works and see what doesn't work and slowly evolve that over time. That's my
Well, I think we've just about run out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to give a big round of applause to Mark, Ravi, Doug, Tammy, Mike, and to Dan. Thank you very much. And don't forget, if you want more information about this, join the Mobile Entertainment Forum, the important trade group. Thank you very much.